So we're now proudly joined by Dan Fessler, who is a professor of biological anthropology at the University of California, Los Angeles. And I said to Professor Fessler before, I said, you are probably the only biological anthropologist who is joining this entire 24-hour call, and we are thrilled and honored to have you. You've written about all of this talk of uniting and compassion and kindness, not as a philosophy or as a feeling, but as a human, as a biological issue. Help us to understand what science and social science has to do with what can sometimes feel like a very soft emotional question.
So our species is remarkable in its cooperativeness. We're unlike any other species on the planet in the extent to which we cooperate with unrelated individuals. But most of us are not unconditionally cooperative. That is, we aren't just helpful towards everyone all the time. Instead, we gauge our experiences of being helpful and pro-social towards others as a function of how they are acting themselves. So think, for example, about how it feels to do the wave in a stadium with 100,000 people. It's a very rewarding, uplifting experience, right? But if you're, trying to lift a heavy load and the other people aren't helping, well, then you just are much less motivated. So our human nature actually leads us to be kind when others are kind. And we experience a positive emotion. Scientists call it elevation when we witness other people being kind towards strangers.
So it's almost as though you're suggesting that we biologically react, and I'm guessing we biologically react negatively when we don't see kindness, and we biologically are drawn to kindness. Am I getting it right?
Yes, that's absolutely right. So this positive, uplifting experience that I described earlier, it's associated with hormonal changes in the body. It's associated with decreases, for example, in heart rate and inflammation. Basically, a reduction of stress responses when we see other people being positive towards one another. And the opposite is true when we see people behaving in a self-interested fashion. And so we're motivated to respond in the way that we see others acting around us. You can think of kindness as being contagious. I know right now contagious has very negative connotations, but of course there's an upside too, right? When we witness other people giving of themselves to help, in particular to help others where there's nothing in it for them, then we're motivated to do so in kind. And that actually changes all aspects, not just of our emotional and personal experience, but actually of our physiology as well.
So could you make the case that if someone is kind to someone in 1,000 miles away from me, that might form a chain and it actually might affect me?
Absolutely. So one of the things that, one of the things that my research team has shown is that how people respond to observing other people behaving kindly depends on what their expectations are. So people who are very idealistic and expect others to be cooperative and altruistic, when they see those positive actions, they experience this rewarding, uplifting emotion. But when people are more cynical and they expect other people to be selfish, they can witness the same event and not experience anything positive at all. So each of us, through our actions, are changing the expectations of other people, because where do those expectations come from? They come from past experience. So, what can happen is when you are helping someone, other people are witnessing that's changing their experience, their expectations. We can get a positive feedback going where ultimately there's an upward spiral. Everyone is becoming more uplifted and more altruistic in turn.
Professor, we started talking about justice and joy. Lawrence talked a lot to us about justice. You're making an argument here that to the extent we own and try to embody kindness, we can actually be perpetrators, I guess that's the wrong word, purveyors, sharers, communicators, spreaders of joy.
Absolutely. Societies are nothing more than collections of individuals. And so how each of us acts towards one another affects the community that we live in, the society that we live in, and ultimately the planet that we inhabit. We're we're all in the 21st century, we're more interconnected than has ever been true in the history of our species. This pandemic is evidence of that, right? We are experiencing the consequences of actions that occur around the world. And the same is true, for example, with the climate crisis. So each of us, by virtue of understanding how we're interconnected in this way, we can begin with even a small act, just a smile or a nod towards a stranger, shapes that person's experience. It ramifies on, right? There's a knock-on effect.
I'm smiling to you, and with the gratitude that I hope will help brighten your day in a small way. And I appreciate very much the kindness you're showing to us by being with us. And I hope everybody watching will take to heart that they have the power to actually spread kindness and joy, even in a small gesture, even in a smile. Thank you, Professor, for joining us.
Thank you for including me.